And we're live with the return of the Manny Grossman. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing great, Eric. Hey, thanks for having me once again. How are you doing?
All right, it's good to have you. And we actually are going back to Son of Sam. Before we took a little bit of a side trail to another criminal and activities that were going on. So there's Yonkers is a very busy place with some very strange people. It appears.
Yes, absolutely. Yonkers, especially in the from the 50s to the 80s, it was a hardcore place. Not so much anymore, but boy was it crazy back in the day.
Seems that way now. Okay, this one you're gonna have to do a little bit of an intro because I'm just going by trust, if you will. You're like, hey, anytime I have something new, I'd like to share it. I'm like, yeah, everybody would love to hear it. So I'm with the audience on this.
All right.
Kind of fill us in on what exactly you've come up with.
Well, Eric and your wonderful audience, and thank you very much for tuning in, guys. Really appreciate it. Well, we have thrown a I'm just gonna say it, a bomb, an A bomb, a Molotov cocktail into the current Son of Sam paradigm. Now, this is my third appearance on Eric's show. We've been working at this since last March, and my first appearance, boy, did we come a long way since then. And of course, our last appearance, we talked about the criminal Daniel Carlton Godjusek, the potentially involved in Eton Pates. But since that time, we have really pounded the pavement in Yonkers, got hardcore back into the actual Son of Sam crimes, and we have come up with some real revelations, Eric. We actually think that we have shattered the current paradigm. We believe that we have stumbled accidentally, actually, onto a story, which, if properly understood by Son of Sam people who are into the Son of Sam story, or anybody who's into this story, can definitely make you go, can make you think, is gonna put in some cognitive dissonance. And what is this story, my friends? This is the story of the Netto family of Wicker Street. And this is a story that really just blew us away. We went in there. Well, we'll tell the story. Why don't we just get into this video, actually, Eric, if you
Yeah,
don't
Manny
mind?
put together a video for us apparently, and so we have audio-visual aids. One thing I like about what Manny does, let me take a second because I've talked about Manny before. I love the fact that you do the walk and talk thing.
Yeah, I think it's critical.
So I think it adds a lot to, you're saying, oh, well, here's this, here's that. It's interesting in terms of visualization. I don't personally do it, but I do know I'll sit there and look at something. A good example is I happened to drive through Dealey Plaza in
Okay.
2013. That's a tiny thing. It's got all this giant historical significance, but
Right.
when we drove through, it was kind of like that's it.
Yeah, that's actually interesting because it does look big on camera.
Right. So that's an example. And I kind of feel like when you're walking around with the camera and stuff, it sort of lends a bit more perspective. And I
Oh,
appreciate what you're
absolutely.
doing.
In fact, that was the reason I started this series in the first place. I never got into this to become an investigator or to research the crimes. I got into this in order to just to visual as a visual accompaniment to Maury Terry's The Ultimate Evil book, which I found was very light on pictures, and the pictures that were in there were all black and white. So I figured that, if I was interested in finding these places and looking at them, I figured the audience would be too. And it's definitely been a big success. People love seeing the areas that Maury talked about. And it really does change people's perspective on everything, because seeing is, a picture is worth 1,000 words.
Perfect.
So who do we have in the chat today? We got some good people. Hey guys, how's everybody?
Hello.
So all right, so I'm just going to get this started. We got a visual accompaniment that I'm going to this is going to be a little bit of a classroom on the air today, folks, because we really found something we think is significant, but it requires a little thought, and it requires you to sort of follow the story. So hopefully I'll be able to explain it in a way that you'll understand, and we will take it from there. So Wicker Street is what we're talking about. And right here you are seeing 18 Wicker Street. Why am I showing 18 Wicker Street to you guys? Because this is the most unknown story, the a footnote to Son of Sam. And what this was Maury talked about these incidents that happened to this family at 18 Wicker Street. The family was called the Netto family. It was Joaquin Neto, his wife Maria, and their daughter Sylvia, as well as the extended family who lived in that house. Essentially, this family was terrorized. And they were terrorized by David Berkowitz. They were terrorized by David Berkowitz starting in when he moved to Yonkers. And Maury Terry, in these articles here, you see this article in the Journal News, clear pattern emerged. In this article here, Berkowitz, did he try to trap himself, and key figures in the Berkowitz drama. And
this
right
is
down
all before the spree of Son of Sam?
This was before and during, yes.
Okay.
And right here we see Joaquin Neto, right? So it's a little hard to see because this is an actual newspaper that we scanned. We didn't get this off the digital web. And so you can, just so you can see these people have been spoken about before, Joaquin Neto. And to Maury Terry's credit, he did recognize that something happened to this family that was important and that he reported on it. However, what we found when we went and talked to these people was that Maury got the entire story wrong, and in so doing, skewed our perception of the Son of Sam crimes. Because as we're going to learn today, there are serious connections. Their dog was shot. Here's the bullet hole in the side of their household. Here's Diana, one of the cousins, who was an eyewitness to David Berkowitz shooting their German Shepherd, and there she was talking about it. And you guys can see all of the these videos on my Subscribestar site, where we did very in-depth videos on this stuff.
That's kind of crazy. So, okay,
yeah.
Because all of us who've heard of Son of Sam in general got the impression that all this crime spree took place, and then they just tracked down this little nebbish postal worker who nobody knew about, is quiet in the corner, and he had a really torn up, weird room.
Right.
But this is kind of showing that, no, this guy is a known figure, and things were going on that he was involved with. These are newspapers, and it's not like now where anybody can get a little bit of ink on the internet or get written about in Facebook or in communities or whatever. Back then, to be in the newspaper, you were really making a pretty big impression, good or bad.
Right. And he terrorized this family for sure once he moved to Yonkers. The interesting thing, though, that we found out about this story, and we'll get into it, we'll actually prove it using the family's own words, is that this criminal spree, this terrorist spree, actually started against the family almost a year and a half before Berkowitz moved to town. And therein lies the mystery. So 18 and 22 Wicker Street were actually, so this is 18 right here. This is the family of the Neto house. Okay. 22 Wicker Street was also an object of David Berkowitz's ire. Interestingly, he wrote after his arrest really demented letters to his psychiatrist, calling 22 Wicker Street, that you see here, a horror hotel. He was talking about demons living in the attic, having orgies with the people who lived in the house, all sorts of strange stuff. As we're going to see, those notes to his psychiatrist are actually extremely significant pieces of evidence.
Is it duplex, or was it all one unit? Because I see 22 and 24.
Exactly. No, these houses were humongous, Eric, and I think they were built as multifamily homes.
Okay.
And so as we're going to see, these letters that Berkowitz wrote tie directly to these crimes, but he wasn't doing these crimes at that point. And it's confusing now. It'll become more and more evident as time goes on. And what's interesting is that the media ignored these crimes. Maury Terry was the only person who reported on these crimes, although erroneously, as we'll learn about. It was here, right here, the Carr household. This is the famous house of Sam Carr, father of John Wheaties Carr, father of Michael Vale Baron de Charnowski Carr, father of Wheat Carr, husband of Francis, and of course the owner of the famous talking dog, Harvey. So it was this house right here that got all of the media attention after Son of Sam. A talking dog was talking to Berkowitz that was owned by this guy right here, and the media completely ignored 18 and 22 Wicker Street. In my opinion, this was a huge disservice because...
What was this address?
This was 316 Warburton, which is literally right around the corner.
Okay.
If you right up here in this area up here, I don't know if you can see where that's where the Nettos live. They live up the block, and we'll see and we'll see pictures literally right across the street from the Carrs. Okay. And that's actually going to be important in our story. So yeah, so 316 Warburton got all the attention, 18 and 22 got no attention. But I think personally, and I think that your audience might be well towards being convinced that the story is a lot deeper than we were told, and it's a lot more significant than we were told. And what you're seeing here, of course, is Berkowitz's building. Let me just go back a little bit. So this is Wicker Street right here, okay? And there's the sign, Wicker. And then right here is the Carr house. We just saw the front of it.
Okay.
So right over here off to the side are the Wicker Street homes. And then if you sweep the panorama, there's Berkowitz's building right there. He lived right up there on the top floor.
So he could see all these places right from his window.
He could see all of these places. And I think that that's actually significant.
Okay.
So here is Maria Neto and her niece, Diana. Sylvia, who was Maria's daughter, who was only 10 years old at the time of these incidents, she's sitting off to the side here. She didn't want to be on camera, but we'll hear her voice. We'll hear her voice today. So again, their dog was shot and killed. They had letters. They had crazy letters sent to the house, rocks being thrown, Molotov cocktails. And right here, guys, right here are the two culprits. This terror spree, as we're going to see, and as we're going to prove today, was actually started by John Carr, the famous son of Sam Carr. One of the people who Maury Terry told us was involved with David Berkowitz in the Son of Sam crimes. And that's pretty much an established, I guess you can say an established fact right now. There's too much evidence.
You agree that both of them
absolutely,
were. Okay.
Absolutely. Jellyhead John, what I call him, he was definitely involved. And of course, Berkowitz took the fall for the entire crimes. The Neto crimes were started by this guy right here, Jellyhead John, later joined by David Berkowitz. And it's my contention that this set of crimes is what provided the impetus, the lust, the bloodlust, if you will, for then the subsequent Son of Sam spree. And my theory, this theory does not require Untermeyer Park. It doesn't require an international cult called the Process. It doesn't require a cult called the 22 Disciples of Hell. This is a very localized story brought back to Yonkers, where I feel this belongs, and it involves at most 5-6 people.
This feels like the Hillside Strangler or Charles Ng and Leonard Lake are
right.
A partnership, but obviously it's more than a partnership, but that a much smaller scale situation, almost.
Correct. Whereas Maury Terry would have us believe that an international cult called the Process members of which came into Untermeyer Park and somehow took over this Son of Sam cult. Unfortunately, it's looking like that was really made up. It's a fantasy, and it was done. And I don't think Maury Terry ever thought that people were going to come out and fact check him. I don't think. I don't know what his motivations
Did he believe it or no? I mean, I know you're talking with Carl, and Carl knew Maury very well.
Right. The question is, I can't really answer that. I have gotten reports from people who worked very closely with Maury Terry who told me straight up that the guy was mainly interested in on keeping his face as the public face of Son of Sam, and just to keep on getting on the TV shows. Like I was told he actually wasn't interested in solving this crime so much as keeping his face out there. I don't know whether that's true. It's just something that I've heard. But John and David are really the nucleus of this group, and it probably includes 3 or 4 other people. But it does not require it's a hyper local story. Now we've taken it back. We're going to show you guys today how the story also, the story of the Netos, relates directly to the 2 famous Son of Sam letters. We're going to come back to these later to show you how these aliases right here are direct references to the crimes taking place against the Neto family on Wicker Street.
And that 22. Okay.
Right.
So that's not half of 44. It could actually be an address, is what you're saying.
Well, actually, what we're finding out now is that the 22 Disciples of Hell were the demons that were sort of controlling all of this. And I'm going to have a show on this coming Monday on I'm having my occult expert come on, And we're going to explain this to the crowd about how the 22 disciples of hell were not an actual group of human beings. They were demons that were sort of controlling the minds of John Carr and David Berkowitz. But Wicked King Wicker and Duke of Death, we have found the answers to those.
Good question from the chat on this. And I know
sure.
it's interrupting, but why did John Carr go to North Dakota? I believe he was stationed there.
He was stationed in the Air Force in Minot, North Dakota. Okay. Great question, P. So that's the Breslin letter up top, and we're going to show how it relates to the Borelli letter here at the bottom. This is going to be insane when you guys see this. We're starting out generalized. We are going to get a lot more specific. So I think what we need to do, Eric, is we need to establish a baseline here. We need to establish the story as it's currently known, because, again, Maury Terry, to his credit, did write about these crimes. Here's one of his articles. Berkowitz waged guerrilla war. True. Berkowitz did do that. There was a clear pattern. The cops should have known about this and should have arrested him before he continued on to be a part of this whole Son of Sam thing. That was the gist of these articles, right? Mm-hmm. However, here is a critical place where Maury either didn't ask the right questions or purposely misled us or just messed up in some way. I'm not assigning blame. I'm not giving an opinion on that. I'm just going to state the facts that he laid out, and then the facts that you're going to hear directly from the family's mouth.
Well, and that time was leading into the Satanic Panic. So I'm going to give a little bit of a pass and say that we're looking at a time where D&D was causing kids to be possessed,
right?
And heavy metal was causing and there were a couple suicides, but the country was rife with people who felt like we're going to hell in a handbasket, quite literally.
True.
From Satan. And it at that time, you and I are about the same age. Mm-hmm. I was kind of young in it, but he may have been caught up in that too. That, look at all this satanic stuff going on. And then, of course, if you say there's satanic things going on and you have a teenager, well, they're going to probably paint a pentagram because it's cool and scary.
It's, in fact, that's a great point, Eric, because we getting back to Untermeyer Park briefly, Untermeyer Park was named as Maury Terry as the headquarters of the Son of Sam cult. And we've actually disproved that as well. It's a whole other show that we can do. But no, we've found out that the main graffiti in that park, the pentagrams that were painted, they were done as kicks. It was kids just trolling people in the 80s, right, in the late 70s, because of all this satanic panic that you're talking about. So yeah, absolutely. So right here is a very important passages. So Maury Terry was correct. Berkowitz was an arsonist. We're going to talk about that. He was an armed marauder. We have eyewitnesses to the shooting of the Netto dog, a German Shepherd, coincidentally enough. He was a writer of threatening letters. However,
was he a bedwetter?
Was he a bedwetter? I don't know.
No, I'm just saying because that's the trilogy. Fire, animals, and bedwetting. That's
really?
Look that up sometime when you're doing your research. But
okay,
he did shoot the dog, and if he's into fires, these are signs very quickly in a lot of serial killers. You'll find all three. 1, 2, 3.
Right. It's interesting because I just had a lot of Berkowitz's old teenage friends on, and it's extremely interesting actually, his relations to fire. He was a fire buff, but that doesn't mean what you think it is. He was a person who actually was extremely interested in firefighting, and he was a member of a youth firefighting club, and they would go and put out fires, and the fire department would set fires for them to train them to put out. It was actually kind of interesting. But I also had a person on 2 weeks ago who was an eyewitness to him lighting arsons. So yeah, something.
The majority of arsons are committed by, or a lot of arsons are committed by
who?
Firefighters.
That's interesting. Yeah. That's actually, it's that whole phenomenon of let me light it and then come and put it out and be the hero. Mm-hmm. I think Berkowitz did have a little bit of that, actually. And just looking at his personality, I can see it. So yeah, Maury was correct. Where he went wrong was right here in this critical passage. Those crimes spanned but 15 months. This is not true. As we're going to learn today, these crimes lasted over 2 years, possibly 2.5 years. Here's another article that Maury wrote. And this article is important because it clearly lays out his timeline for these events. As we're going to learn, his timeline was completely wrong. He lays out a Molotov cocktail being thrown at their house at 3:30 in the morning on May 13th, 1976. That was, I know the date, it's not here, but it's May 13th, 1976. Now, he moved to Yonkers in April, just the month before. Okay. So Maury lays out the Molotov cocktail first. Then down here in this paragraph, it says, then came the letters. Again, I want you guys to take notes out there, those of you who are interested, because you should write this timeline down. He has the fire first, then letters, okay, then a swatting incident, which did take place, okay, and then finally their dog gets shot on Christmas Eve, 1976. Now, these incidents did occur. Maury screwed up the timeline, and he also missed some very significant information, not only about the early incidents, but about the contents of the letters themselves, which we're going to get into here. So here's Maria Neto in an article written by Steve Dunleavy, the famous New York Daily News reporter back in the 70s, and you can see the hole in the fence created by the bullet. And we actually had the cops remove the siding. The police, by the way, Eric, I don't know if I've told you, but YPD took an active interest in this video series after we found an area in Untermeyer Park where there might be bodies buried. That's a whole other story as well. We've come a long way since we last spoke, Eric.
So you're working with the police?
We're working in concert now with YPD. We have them on speed dial. If we have anything, they're very interested. And when we were told by Maria Neto, the woman over here, just a couple of weeks ago, that they think the bullet was still in the side, I got on the phone to Cold Case and I said, hey, we got a bullet here potentially. Literally the next morning they were out. And if you go on my Twitter, you can see I have a minute-long excerpt of the crime scene investigators taking out the bullet.
Oh, so it was there. Okay.
No, I'm sorry. Looking for the bullet. It turns out that it was not there, but not to fear. There might be some extra ones that we didn't realize at the time. So this was an interesting article. We went back and we looked at the trajectory. Now here's an interesting insight into Sam Carr, the father of Jellyhead John, the guy whose dog supposedly talked to Berkowitz. So about 150 feet from her home, that's the Maria Neto, is the house of Sam Carr, an elderly man who once poked a gun in my ribs. I mean, here's a guy who's thinking nothing, Eric, of taking a gun and shoving it into the ribs of a New York Daily News reporter who's coming to his door. So that's a good psychological insight into the Carr patriarch. So here, again, this is an interesting article for you guys to look up. So now we're starting getting into the meat of it. So the Netos today, I'm just going to let this run. So, of course, there's the great Maria. We just saw her in the New York Daily News article. And she's a wonderful woman. Has all her marbles. She's 86 years old now. She's just absolutely beautiful person. There's Diana, her niece, who lived on the second floor and who was an eyewitness to all of this. And we're going to hear from her in a little while. Just off to the side is Sylvia, again, the daughter, who was, as we're going to learn, was probably the object of all of these sick acts. That's gonna make more sense. But a lot of people said, well, how'd you get into this house in the first place? This is crazy. Well, we have made very great inroads in Yonkers through this video series. We've made a lot of friends, and one of our friends who became very close to me and who is very close is my now current investigative partner, and he goes by the name Neo. We don't give his real name. Neo is extremely hooked up in Yonkers. The guy knows everybody. If I have a person's name, I just call Neo, who's this guy? Within 3 seconds, he's got him on the phone. I mean, it's uncanny. So he knew the Netos. He knew a guy who knew the husband of Sylvia. And through that, we worked it out where we got into their house and we were able to interview them. And we've done 3 videos on them so far. So now here's why the timeline is important. Okay. Because Maury gave us this version of events. Now, we never knew critical information. I want you to hear from their own mouth. Check this out. Now, how long before his arrest did all this occur? What
2 years.
Oh. 2 years?
2 years.
So this happened in 1975?
Yes.
2 years.
75, 76. And it was like, it was happening for 2 years, and every month or 2 months, something would happen.
So there you have it, unequivocal. They said that before Berkowitz's arrest for 2 years. Now, somebody can parse words here and they can say, well, Maury said 15 months, 15 months, 2 years. Well, 15 months and 24 months is a big time difference. And as we're going to see, I worked this out here. This is going to take a few minutes, Eric, but I want the audience to see methodology because it's important. I don't want them just to take my word for it that these events happened in this timeline. We established the timeline with this family and this is what we're gonna play now. It's gonna go for a couple minutes. Hopefully nobody will get bored. But again, what I'm trying to establish here on this classroom on the air of true crime Son of Sam history is the fact that these crimes started way before Berkowitz moved to town. That's the critical point here. He joined an existing criminal conspiracy. It wasn't just him.
When did he move to town?
He moved to town in April of 1976.
Okay.
These incidents, as we're going to learn, could have started as early as late 1974. So here we are, just informally sitting around a table, and I'm making them pin down this timeline because I just didn't want to make any errors here in reporting. I want to just nail down and pin down the timeline of everything that happened to you, because Berkowitz did not move to this building up here until April of 1976. You said that these incidents started before April of 1976. They started in 75, you're saying? No hesitation.
He called here to my daughter.
The first thing that happened
He's the one caller who
okay.
called my daughter. Then my husband answered the phone, and he said, "Who you are?" My daughter is a child. To somebody call it. Please, I want to know where you are. They hang the phone.
So here's something interesting, and people should take two things from this. One, the calls started first. In Maury's timeline, he had the Molotov cocktail first in May of 1976. It was actually calls that started first, and then letters. And these calls, interestingly enough, were coming to this daughter, to Sylvia, who was 10 years old. Okay. Now, John Wheaty's Carr has been named in the Breslin letter as a rapist and suffocator of young girls. And Berkowitz himself said that he loved young girls in particular. So we found this extremely interesting, that these crimes started with calls to Sylvia and not done by David Berkowitz. It was a year and a half before he was even moving to town at this point.
And this happened so many times, they called my daughter.
And this happened before rocks throwing, before letters.
That is when the thing is starting.
What was the first thing that happened?
Sylvia.
The rock throwing, or did you receive phone calls?
You don't remember?
I remember because I was so scared. And I take her all the time to the school. I think something gonna happen because nobody had to call her.
So what was the first
I
thing?
don't care exactly. I told you that the rock come first, and that is something I don't.
You don't remember the rocks or the letters.
Okay, so here's where critics can probably criticize me because they're like, well, Manny, you don't know whether the rocks came first or the letters. All right, granted. But we know that this all started, as we're going to learn about, we know that this all started a year and a half before Berkowitz moved to town. He couldn't have done this stuff. We're gonna establish that right
first.
Here. Then after those letters, this when that happened, he said fire the house. We had the fire. Remember?
After the letters, the fire.
I don't say who's first or
La
who's.
piedra fue después del fuego, yo creo, ¿no?
He. So many things.
It's okay. You got time.
So when I remember is the letters. They call it to my daughter. And the letter they send it to her, I don't be here. I don't know nothing about those things happen. Son and nothing.
Right.
When I go to the hospital, I don't know nothing.
Okay, the hospital's going to be important.
Nobody have that scared about this man.
Right.
But only I remember they told my husband, you had to be in a place with the wife very, she had to be, because I have, that night, I have told what I have with my nervous, right? And they told my husband, the doctor told my husband she had to be in quiet place and no, which all the time.
This kind of makes no sense here, but we're getting somewhere.
And this is those things. Then after is when all those problems start. Then it's after when we're so scared about all those things happen, we're gonna want to sell the house almost for nothing.
Right.
And this young guy come to buy our home, and he don't have the leg or something, but he's already have everything. But I feel so sorry for him. Then I don't keep that in my heart. I said, I'm gonna tell you the truth. I'm gonna sell this house because we have problem in this house and we are scared because I think I can run him, but you don't can run him.
Right.
So John wanted to buy their house?
Remember perfect.
No,
So
he refused to buy the house at
just
that point.
a guy coming to buy it.
Because in the newspaper article that you have down in the basement that you showed me and that I have at my house to read, it says that the first thing that happened was May 13th, 1976, Molotov cocktail at 3:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
But so what I'm trying to pin down is because that's when Berkowitz is living in this neighborhood. He moved in April, the month before. But you're saying that things happened before the Molotov cocktail?
Yeah, the calling,
The callings. And then
they start with the calling.
it started with the calling. Okay.
And then, no, first the letter, right?
Well, we have the letters in the newspaper article, and again, the newspaper could be completely inaccurate. In fact, I think it is, but it has the Molotov cocktail happening first, then the letters. No?
No, because my mother was in the hospital. That was the whole thing, is that she was in
Yeah,
the
the letter
hospital.
was in the hospital.
And they didn't
And
want to
nothing
tell her.
happened in my house
So
before.
75, a little bit probably after the summer, you did get rocks and bricks thrown through your window, right? That definitely happened. Good, because I actually
Yeah,
asked
that happened.
somebody from this area, and they had
that
mentioned
your guy?
they had
That's
found out
Neo,
that
yeah.
John Carr was doing it to your house.
So that is true. We found a witness who said that John Carr was the one who started the rocks, and we're establishing that this started in late 1974, early 75. So let's pin this down. When were you in the hospital? Do you remember what year?
No, my daughter, I think he said, when I went to the hospital, you have about
10.
10 years old. Yeah.
So that would be what year?
I 87.
70.
Maria messed 74. up. 74.
That's
So-
when she was in the hospital. She was there. And then, we're talking back to 75 when she came back. And,
But you're saying
Thing happened with some.
Yeah, nothing. I remember even that you think I have the way I was.
so
when I
we
come
can
to a
we can
house,
fast forward through this a
she
little
say, I
bit.
don't want to say nothing.
The
Set
point
the house on fire. The letters.
the letters were before the
And I
fire.
was here because during the cocktail Molotov,
Uh-huh.
I moved with my mom for 3 months, but then I came back. Right after he tried to set the house on fire.
Okay.
I came back, I think 2 months after he tried to set the house on fire.
So right, this is important because we want to pin this down, this timeline. What happened first? Okay, so what we just saw there was them working through the timeline. I fast forward a little bit over stuff that wasn't really relevant, but the relevant part here is that Maria was in the hospital in late 74. When she was in the hospital, that's when the letters started coming to the family. They didn't want to tell her while she was in the hospital that these letters were coming because she would have been so nervous she wouldn't have want to come back. That was the point there. So we've just established that these incidents occurred in late 74, not starting with Berkowitz moving to town, meaning that Berkowitz joined an existing group, which means that so right there is proof that Berkowitz was a member of some group. It wasn't just him alone. Okay. Now let's talk about these early incidents a little bit more. So the first thing, of course, is the rocks. We spoke to a guy who was unequivocal. He said John Carr started that rock campaign.
Then the letters started coming. Now check out what was in the letters. And remember, this was before Berkowitz moved to town, guys.
See the letters that were sent here to this
One
house?
time,
What did they say?
my grandmother tore the letter,
Tore them up.
but I noticed they had crosses, like upside down cross and a star.
Upside down cross.
Yes, and the 5-pointed star upside down, the pentagram.
You're sure of that?
Yes.
So the letters that were coming to this family before Berkowitz moved to town were sprinkled and riddled with pentagrams and upside down crosses. Now check this out. This is where we're going to start to connect everything. Maria talks about one of the contents of the letters, and it mentioned the word queen in it. This is going to become very significant. Okay. So give this a little second here.
My sister says something about that.
About the
they
queen.
send the letter, and they're gonna burn. And they say at the top of this house is the queen, and they're gonna burn this house from the top to the ground.
So the queen lived in the attic.
Yeah.
From what I recall,
Mm-hmm.
my aunt read the letter, and the letter said was like the demons in the attic above the 3rd floor, they would come down to have orgies with us in the basement. That's what the letter said, because at that time, the family used to get together for Thanksgiving, for December 24th, that we celebrate that. We used to have a big dinner in the basement. So our family, we have families in Elizabeth, New Jersey, that will come down. We will get together to have dinner.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what the letter said, that there were demons in the attic, and they will come down to the basement to have orgies with us.
That's exactly what Berkowitz wrote in his letters after.
Yes, and that's what my aunt read.
Did he
That
mention
letter, that's what
demons more than once?
I didn't see that letter. The letter that my aunt read, I didn't see it, but that's what the letter said, because my aunt,
Or just one
She
time?
told you.
I heard, she said to my grandma.
That's what they told you. Yeah,
Yes.
and that's definitely true, because we
Yeah,
know
that
he
there
sent
were
the letter
demons
saying-
in the attic, and then they would come down to have orgies with us in the basement.
What happened to the letters?
Unfortunately, they destroyed them, Eric. Now here, because they didn't realize how historically significant they would be. Remember, this was all happening years before Son of Sam.
Sure.
So here is where we can start making connections and start asking questions. All right. So these letters we have established came before Berkowitz moved to town. He couldn't have written them because he couldn't have known about this family. Like, I don't know about a family in some future place that I'm going to live 3 years down the line.
Well, it's before he moved in.
Right.
I do want to point out, I mean, yeah, I don't know that he didn't know these people.
Correct.
From wherever he was.
It's extremely unlikely. You are fair about that, and I will concede that. But he lived on the opposite side in another borough. He lived in the Bronx, in the East Bronx, about as far as you can get literally from Yonkers as possible, because he was living on the Long Island Sound, near the Long Island Sound, there on the Hudson River. Unlikely, but yes, all right, it's possible. So the question that I have, though, assuming that he didn't know, okay, let's just assume that he didn't. Here's a letter that he wrote to his psychiatrist after he was arrested. And listen to the wording here. The word loosens the flood of madness. When the soul of a victim leaves the body, demons are right there. They snatch the souls and take them to the attic of 316 Warburton, or to the houses at 18 and 22 Wicker Street. They chain the souls and have sex with them forever. The demons take the victim's souls and drag them to the house. And we don't need to read the rest of it. It's pretty ugly.
Mhm.
So I'm like you said, it's fair. He could have known them. I don't think he did, but he could have. But assuming that he didn't know them, how would he know the contents of the letters sent to the Nettos a year and a half before he moved to town? Right? Like, he would have either had to have sent them himself, which is unlikely, but possible, or he heard about the contents of the letters from the person who actually sent them. And since we know he was associated with John Carr once he moved to Yonkers, it's likely that John Carr told him what was in these letters, and he's just regurgitating this back. Maybe he was trying to hint. Maybe he was trying to give an oblique hint to somebody here that, hey, it's Wicker Street, guys. It's not, this is the story. The story's on Wicker Street. So this is an anomaly to me. All right. Because assuming he did not know the Nettos in late 1974, remember, he was still in the army. He was just getting back from the army at that time. He was bumming around the Bronx, lighting arson fires and living in a one bedroom apartment somewhere in the East Bronx.
by his own admission, he didn't meet the Carrs until the mid 1975. So again, unlikely that he knew these people, but possible. Still, I would like to know how he knew the contents of these letters, because that's curious to me.
I want to bring this up real quickly.
Yes, sir.
M22, we get it. We're not overly sensitive of the letter.
Mhm.
YouTube is very sensitive of certain terms. So Manny's doing me a courtesy by not reading specific details, which get this video
Oh, right.
demonetized, which has already happened, but I've already put it in to hopefully get that overturned. So when we say bad things really happen, that is for the algorithm that is constantly listening for trigger words that are going to trip up and punish the channel, punish the video. If the video is demonetized or whatever, they also will shrink it on the algorithm and nobody will find it. So that's the reason why it's not for delicate ears or anything of that sort.
So, of course, after we heard that the Queen was in the attic, we recognized that the attic of 18 Wicker Street had historical significance to the Son of Sam story. So, of course, we had to get up there, Eric. And it was a pain in the ass, my friend. We had to go to a third floor apartment. We had to ask permission of the tenants. Luckily, the Nettos still live in the house and they're the landlords, so it was pretty easy. But this was a little hole in a closet. There was no staircase getting up to there. We had to set up some rickety ass ladder, get up there into this kind of gross and dirty attic. But I just had to get up there. And just to prove that it is the Netto attic, for the audience, I looked out the window. I even opened the window. You can clearly see the Hudson River there. That's clearly Yonkers. It's the aqueduct. And, I kind of just showed that. But what was interesting about this attic was, I'm just going to fast forward a little bit, is that we found these wine bottles and we saw them a little bit before. Neo was holding one up. We found and here they are. I found, here's one of them from the attic, right? Gallo Port. And this is just spitballing. This is just us speculating. So there's the Carr house right here, by the way. This is the front of the Netto house. There's the Carr house. And so John Carr could have looked into this house too, right? He could have seen it at all times, obsessing over Sylvia, which is what we think he did. And when we talk about the letters, we're gonna try to prove that even more. And there's Berkowitz's apartment right there. But what in the Breslin letter, in one of the famous Son of Sam letters, it says it says hello from the gutters of NYC, hello from the sewers of NYC. Maury Terry speculated that meant the aqueduct, right? The famous aqueduct that comes from upstate New York down south. Well, here's the aqueduct right here. It runs by Untermeyer Park, and it also runs right behind the Carr house. So there's the gutters and the sewers. So hello from the gutters of NYC, hello from the sewers of NYC, which are filled with stale wine, vomit, manure, dog manure, blood, urine, and so on and so forth. So the word wine and stale wine is in the Breslin letter. And, Neo speculated, hey, maybe John Carr was up in that attic at one point. Maybe that's why they were so obsessed. Maybe he was molested up there. I'm spitballing that. He didn't bring that up. But it was just an interesting little anomaly that we found, because it just makes no sense.
So who had access to that attic back at that time?
Great question. The Nettos bought the house in 1967 or so. So and these were all wrapped with newspaper from 1958. I took the newspaper off. John Carr would have been 12 years old in 1958. So this
is prior to them getting there.
Correct. And so our speculation, and this is just
fun.
So
who owned it? Because there's property records.
That's a great question. We need to find that out, and we can find that out. There's also an issue of tenants that were on the second floor that were extremely evil and abusive, that were there when the Nettos moved in. We don't have time to get through that today, nor are they particularly relevant to our story. We did 3 videos on this. Today, what I'm trying to do is just to establish the base story, and then the little tangents we can go from there. But we just thought it was interesting with these wine bottles up there, and we just figured we'd bring the audience up there, because there's Berkowitz's apartment building right there. The Netto house is actually triangulated between the Carr house and
and Berkowitz's apartment building. And, you know, Carr was military and Berkowitz was military. So you got to wonder, like, and this is a very easy neighborhood to have terrorist attacks because it's desolate, very few neighbors around. And in the summertime, it's completely filled with leaves and there's a lot of cover. So it's an interesting neighborhood to wage a terrorist campaign. Easy to you know, do stuff like that there.
Are you going to go film this summer?
Oh, hell yeah. We are nowhere near done with this. So here is where we're going to start bringing this all together. So the Netto crimes have what I call two distinct periods, BB and AB, before Berkowitz and after Berkowitz. Before Berkowitz moves to town, the crimes, while annoying, yes, are relatively innocuous. Prank calls, perverted calls, not fun to get through, but not life-threatening. Rocks hitting the windows, annoying letters talking about demons in the attic, which are kind of strange. Freaky, weird stuff that's not fun to have happen to you, no doubt, but not life-threatening. After Berkowitz moves to town, that's when things ramp up. Now, interestingly enough, by Berkowitz's own admission, he moved to that area to be near the center of activity, what he called the center of activity. Here's an excerpt from The Ultimate Evil.
Okay, now hold on. He said he moved to the area to be in the center of activity, which implies that he knew something about the activity. And that's where I was saying he could have known these people.
Eric, that's a good point. I want to commend you because it's something that I didn't think about. And actually, I'm glad to be challenged on this because I need it. Absolutely. He was told to move to Pine Street, though. So then again, maybe not. But he was told to move there. Things were heating up and the center of activity had shifted to that part of Yonkers. So listen, great challenge. And I want to be challenged because that's the whole point of this exercise here, is to come up with a theory and then have people try to knock it down. I mean, not saying that you're trying to, Eric, but you know, I want.
No, I don't know. I'm just pointing out.
No. It's a great point, and it's something that we definitely need to discuss because words matter, and you're right. It can be interpreted that way. But what Maury had us believe was that he was moving to be close to Untermeyer Park, to the satanic rituals in Untermeyer Park. Now, Untermeyer Park's a 45-minute walk away from that area. It's about a mile north of where Berkowitz lives. You can walk there quickly in about half an hour. So I don't think that qualifies as center of activity, and he could have moved near Untermeyer Park. There's a ton of apartment buildings up there he could have moved to, equally as affordable as his place in Pine Street. So I think that this passage was misinterpreted by people reading this, and in reality,
is the big question right here.
Yeah, exactly. He was telling us, in my opinion,
when did Burke and Carr first meet? That really is a very significant question.
That is the exact $1 million question, which we do not know the answer to.
Well, they're both in the military,
stationed in very different places.
No, they were, but
right.
Somebody mentioned in the chat previously that Carr was run out of the Air Force due to drugs.
Right.
I don't know if Berkowitz had any kind of disciplinary action.
He did. In fact, his friends told us that not only did he get heavily into drugs in the military, LSD, morphine,
there we go.
Marijuana. But wait, I wasn't done. He was actually discharged because he lit his barracks on fire.
Okay, so if you have two people who are both in the military, they could have crossed paths through a drug program, some sort of a lockup situation. Different branches may share resources when it comes to locking people up, and that could have them meeting each other. I don't know any of this. I'm just throwing it in there, but I think it's significant, and I feel like in my heart or my mind, just what little I know, they knew each other at some point before Berkowitz.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the popular story is that Berkowitz met John Carr's brother Michael first at a party in Yonkers in 1975, but we have witnesses to him lighting arson fires in late 74. So it's very, very murky. The only person who could really answer this is David Berkowitz. He's the last person alive who can answer that question.
Well, you know somebody who's visited him.
Yeah, and he got totally in my opinion, he got totally trolled. Berkowitz gave him a pamphlet on the process, and I'm like, that's just ridiculous. He's just trolling us at this point. So this is significant in my opinion. I'm glad that you did mention that one thing, but here's another thing that also kind of shows that my thesis might be correct. So remember, before Berkowitz and after Berkowitz, John Carr was the person doing this before Berkowitz. We have an eyewitness to him that heard that he was doing the rocking, right? So,
this just reads. I mean, man, I'm jumping ahead. I know.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
In my mind, it just sounds like escalation. Oh, you're throwing rocks? I'll throw a Molotov cocktail.
Right, but
you're writing a letter? I'll shoot a gun. I mean, it just
exactly. It's a weird. It's a vicious dynamic duo that took place. But look at what John Carr told his counselor, his therapist. He said that he looked up to Berkowitz because Berkowitz wasn't afraid to do anti-establishment things. So to me, that means that Berkowitz was a little bit more gutsy, had a little more balls, was a little more psychotic than John Carr. Whereas John felt good writing letters, making calls, and maybe throwing an occasional rock. Berkowitz moves to town, and all of a sudden it ramps up to Molotov cocktails, a swatting incident,
one night,
and a shooting of their dog.
How you call
so here's the Molotov cocktail.
My daughter sleeps that night with my mother.
Upstairs,
in the
second floor.
Upstairs, to make a company to my mother.
Uh-huh.
Then, where they send the cocktail Molotov, my house burned all in the front. And they don't hit the bed where they are because we have
a screen.
The screen. And then this way they don't burn inside where she was.
Fell down and it exploded.
She would have been killed
Right.
if that had gotten into the bedroom.
The Molotov cocktail hit where?
Up there. Sylvia could see the flame because they were sleeping in that room.
So the Molotov cocktail went to the room that Sylvia was in, which is interesting.
Off the screen and fell down the side of the house.
Correct. If it had gotten in, God knows what would have happened.
But I moved out, with my mother for 3 months, and then I came back after the fire.
So you were not there when the Molotov cocktail hit. Sylvia was there.
And my grandmother. Sylvia was sleeping with my grandmother.
So Sylvia was with her grandmother.
Sylvia was sleeping. So Sylvia was up there the night of the firebombing.
So then there was a swatting incident, which was sick because everyone could have been killed.
To tell them.
Yeah, they're ahead of the game.
Joaquin had gone crazy inside.
I mean,
the house,
swatting's a modern thing.
Being
sarcastic.
Yes.
Yeah, I know.
Joaquin is my father.
7 or 5 people is dead here.
They said that the father was killing everybody.
When my parents' bedroom is back there,
Uh-huh.
and then and my bedroom was here, and they start knock.
Did they say it by name?
It was like somebody was bringing down the.
Did they say what by name?
Joaquin. Did they say explicitly he was doing it?
Yes.
Or somebody in the house? Well, and the reason why
I don't know
because you're talking about maybe I don't even how much drugs might have been involved. It could have been delusional involvement. Some like you're already talking about demons in the attic and everything else going on. I don't even know. I'm wondering if it was specifically against the Nettos or if it was actually against the house. And
great point. Well, we think it was against the Nettos because, as we're going to learn when we look at the letters, they reference very personal things inside the house. So they knew something about this family. And also, Eric, interestingly enough, May 13th, 1976, this is a Portuguese family. That's a Portuguese holiday. So that there's a connection there as well. And so they definitely knew personal stuff. And Berkowitz named Joaquin Netto in his rantings after the
well, that was my question. Is I didn't
correct
know if it was specifically targeted.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. Knowing my father, and
so
knowing
the
what
swatting
was
could have
going on
gotten
in our
him
house,
killed.
He could have picked up that shotgun.
Right. And
they would have shot him and killed him right there. But he came out, and then he opened the door and he saw that it was the cops, and they were pointing here, like on the fence. The cops were pointing at us.
The cops were all pointing guns at the house.
On my father. But don't go. And she's gonna be in Bacohen.
Whoa.
Because we don't know who is.
They were setting you guys up to be shot by the police.
Right, they kill us. Then the police go open the door Right away, he see here all this. He don't pay permission. He opened the other door.
He went,
Go upstairs, all the
Oh, yeah.
house. And then when they come back, I'm sorry, we don't know who they are.
This is the piano that was being played.
So this is the final
the night
attack.
that the shooting. So I want to reenact this. Can you go back in there? And so
It's
you
not
were
the
there.
same.
It doesn't matter.
I was
So you
there. I was sitting down.
so you were sitting here.
Right.
So
I
they
was
were having a
here,
Christmas party.
Right? It was a different piano. It
Don't
was
worry,
a-
we're not going to get you on.
It was
Yeah.
an old Steinway piano, like an upright.
The details,
I was
right?
playing, I heard the shot. I went out.
So she heard the shot. She
No,
goes to the door.
I came out. My cousin Jackie that was here,
Mhm.
and she said, "Don't come out." Then I went back to the piano. I sat here, right?
Right.
30 seconds, no more than a minute. I heard a second shot. Then I went to look through the window. There were shades. These are different kind of shades. You know,
Right.
the old. I look. I heard somebody running, like I heard somebody moving. Then my cousin was me. I went out, and Wendy Rockefeller was the one that went downstairs to call her dad, who was a marshal at that time.
Right.
When I opened the door, these people came and they were running down. You
They
Let's do
were
it.
running.
Let's do it.
know? Okay.
Now,
So you opened the door and you came out here.
I came here. This building wasn't there. Two of my uncles went down the hill. Jack Neto, Humberto Rockefeller, and Manny went downstairs. And I could see the guy running and the off-white color car
Was this
was
wasn't
waiting
here?
for David Berkowitz. I saw him get in. You can see now because it's a building.
interestingly
was
enough,
far-
Eric, she saw David Berkowitz running. She was able to identify him, and she said that he got into the passenger side of an already running car and they drove away. So that shows right there that he
Was
was
on
working in
Warburton
concert with
Avenue
other
there.
people
It's
as
in
well.
South, right
Well,
across
Berkowitz shot the
street.
dog, right?
There was
Correct.
somebody waiting for
Well, he
David
was the one that was a good shot.
So the room where you
I'm
were
sorry?
playing.
He was the one that was a good shot.
And the
Yeah,
piano
he was-
here,
he
and the
was a good
shooting was
shot.
here.
Right, the dog was right
And remember,
there.
he had
Then
deadly
everything
accuracy in Son
happened
of
so
Sam
fast.
too.
Well, that's why I was
Then I
bringing it
can
up,
hear-
right?
Right.
Because some of them were
The dog
sloppy
was sitting
shooters.
here.
Correct.
Berkowitz
On the
seemed to be
left side.
I mean,
I
did
asked
he
the dog,
shot.
Rocky, what's the
hit
matter?
him in the
Dog
literally in
trying
the
to
forehead?
Right in the
talk
head.
to me,
Mhm.
and I noticed he had a big bullet, a big hole
So
in his
their
neck,
dog was right here and got
on his
killed,
right side of his
Mm.
neck, and he died. Knocked him out of his mouth.
and a
That
German
was it.
Shepherd
And then the
too.
bullet was right here.
Yes.
Who would
there's
be
a bullet
protecting
hole.
the house?
Huh?
Now,
Well,
why
one
would
went
the
into
bullet be there?
dog.
Was it shooting up from the street or something? Or
We followed the trajectory across the street. There's actually a little hill that goes down that you can get it and get in and shoot right there. It's the exact trajectory.
was it a rifle or a pistol?
She said it was a rifle because when the guy got into the passenger side, the window was already rolled down and he put the rifle out the window, like he stuck the barrel out the window. I guess because he didn't they were anticipating he'd need the room for that, right? Like he didn't want to point it at the guy driving, so he put
Well,
it
what
out the
time of year
window.
was it?
It was December 24th, 1976.
So the window
Well,
shouldn't
I
be
guess
open
wasn't
the
anyway.
first
here.
shot,
Exactly.
yes,
Eric, you're like a good
And
police
just looking
detective.
from the
I like this.
trajectory,
yes.
not that I'm a police officer and can
Mhm.
tell, but it looks like
And there were other ones here, I think, because
it was shot right from that
Right, but
from the
there-
aqueduct.
listen, man.
So right here, Eric, behind this car right here,
Mhm.
the ground dips down. And a
Okay.
person lying there could have slightly up. If you go back and look at that Daily News article, you see a hole in the fence right here.
Okay, and I think at that time she just stated that building wasn't next door, so there likely might not have been all these cars parked either.
No, actually that's a little rub and we have to be accurate. They actually said that it was December 24th. There was huge parties going on and there were cars parked everywhere. So that's an interesting little rub because there might have actually been a car there, which then begs the question, well, then where were they shooting from? Because the bullet did go up. You can see it in the Daily News article. The hole in the fence is below where the hole in the wall is. Now, I'm not a ballistics expert. Maybe there was shrapnel. Maybe when it hit the fence, the bullet
don't know.
shattered. I mean, I don't know. It looked like a pretty clean bullet hole, though, to me.
And there were other shots here. I think there were.
This
other
is
holes in
interesting.
there.
We're gonna have to bring the
But they
cops
put
back.
How many
because-
shots were there?
These are new.
Yes.
Well, she said she heard two. But then she said that there were other bullets in here as well. So I'm wondering if there were actually 2 shooters. I don't know. We don't know the answer to that. But she said that there's still
There were
bullets
shots in
possibly
here, too.
behind these.
And they,
So
they-
we're going to get the cops
let me
back
see.
to do
Yeah,
that
Not only
eventually.
here, there were holes in here.
Because we got to
too.
find a bullet. If there's one there, we got to find it.
Really? Okay, so more than one shot.
Of course. This is not the only one. There were other ones here.
Is this one?
That I don't know about that,
I don't think so.
but I know there were holes in here, in this area. That was not the only one.
I'm wondering
Okay.
the caliber on that too, because
I know, maybe a
that's
22.
not well, if it's 22, the fence would have stopped it, or would
Oh,
have
really?
sheared it off. Well, I mean, a 22 is a decent round, but it's not going to
Right.
be traveling that cleanly and going in there in the wall like that. I don't think personally.
It's interesting. I mean, hope maybe we'll find a bullet behind those mailboxes. Now, all right. So we've established we're all, even though we're almost done with this video, we have established one major thing, that the story we were told in the newspaper was wrong. Maury got the basic information right: letters, calls, shooting, fire bombs. But what he did was he made it seem that Berkowitz was responsible for all of it.
Mm.
And he did not ever tell us whether he knew it or not. He didn't find out, or he purposely didn't tell us. Either way, the result is the same. We, as the general public, had no idea that these crimes were already in progress and that he most likely joined them. And this is important for Son of Sam.
Did he join or
people.
take over? And
Join.
I'm only pointing it out because I kind of get the feeling, and maybe I'm wrong. What if you have a punk who's doing these crimes, and then you have somebody darker, somebody who is comfortable killing somebody and setting fires, and he just says, "I'm going to take over this little gang here."
That's a very interesting, Eric. I'm glad we did this show together, because you not only are you challenging me today, but you're putting ideas into my head that are new and fresh. It's been said that Berkowitz is the ultimate follower, that he was Maury almost paints him as a victim of all of these circumstances. But from what I'm hearing from his old friends, and from what I'm gleaning from this story of the Nettos, you might be right. This guy actually is emerging as a dark, psychotic figure who was much more of a leader, it seems, than a follower, to me anyway. Which is another rub in the story. But Maury screwed up the timeline, thereby screwing up our in a sense. He didn't let us know how important this story was. Now, I know some people are going, well, so what, the timeline? But when we show you some things that are coming up in just the next couple of minutes, this is going to blow you away. Okay. So first of all, not only did he screw up the timeline, check this out too, how badly he got on the shooting. Okay. He said that here, talking about the shooting in The Ultimate Evil, the Nettos were entertaining a large gathering when several shots fired from a car. Okay. He said it fired from a car through a chain link fence. That can't be true, because she saw the person running down the aqueduct, getting into a car. It slammed into the dwelling, barely missing a window behind which young Sylvia was playing piano. Listen to what the family says about that incident. Okay, I'm gonna ask about that. Just to fact check. In The Ultimate Evil, the book about this whole thing,
Right.
it talks about how the night that the dog was shot, that Sylvia was almost shot also, that she was only a few feet away, and that's not true.
No, I could have been shot if I opened that door, because I went to the hallway where you came in,
Right.
and my cousin came behind me. She said, "Don't go out."
After the first shot, you
Correct.
went, right.
If I opened that door, he would have probably shot me and my cousin, because she was standing next to me.
So they clearly say that she was nowhere near, she wasn't shot. And if you look at the way that house is laid out, that piano is nowhere near where the dog was shot. So I don't know why Maury put that in the book. So Maury's timeline is very clear. He tells us right here again.
Well, it depends too. Like, I'm hearing some really thick accents.
Okay.
And I don't know who Maury interviewed. Did you happen to find that out? Who he spoke to personally out of that family?
I believe he spoke to Maria mainly. I think Joaquin didn't really want to talk to him too much. And yeah, he might not have gotten the full story. Although there's certain things that he should have followed up on, as we're going to learn, that if he had, we would not be sitting here talking about Untermeyer Park or the process, because we haven't even hit you with the pièce de résistance yet.
Okay,
I just
so
wanted
I keep stalling things then.
Yeah.
Inadvertently.
We're almost done with the video. I'm saving the best for last. I just wanted to establish that Maury got the timeline wrong. Maury screwed up the story. So therefore, Maury is fallible. Maury did not give us the full picture of this. Okay. He told us the Molotov cocktail was first up here. Then it clearly says, then came the letters. Whereas we heard that the letters actually started in 1974, late 74, over a year and a half before Berkowitz moved to town. Letters sprinkled with all sorts of...
which makes sense for an escalation.
True, but then the answer is, the question is, why would Berkowitz be obsessed with the Netto family when he's living literally on the other side of the, not even of the same city, he's in New York City, they're in Yonkers, like he's nowhere near them. But all right, it could be. There's always that possibility. But in either case, the timeline was wrong, and I, for one, am not happy about that. All right, so our new timeline is pre-Berkowitz and post-Berkowitz, and that there's a clear, as you say very aptly, Eric, clear escalation. Now, here's how the Son of Sam letters directly tie to and reference the Netto crimes. Okay, so here's the first thing. I miss my pretty princess most of all. She's resting in Our Lady's house. First of all, remember what the letters to the Nettos said. It talked about a queen living in the attic. Okay. So we have queen imagery and queen royalty words in the Netto letters written in 1974, early 1975. Okay. And the Borelli letter here sent during the Son of Sam spree, left at the crime scene that Berkowitz did the shooting of. It talks about a princess who's resting in Our Lady's house. Well, I looked up what Our Lady means, and wow, it means Queen of Heaven. It could mean lady or queen. It could mean the Virgin Mary. What was the lady's house there? Maria Netto, the pretty princess resting in Maria's house. We believe that the princess referred to Sylvia. And remember, John Carr, rapist and suffocator of young girls. He loved young girls. Sylvia was a 10-year-old to 12-year-old girl during this crime spree. Okay. So that's the first thing. Now all right, you might say that this is specious. This is reaching. Okay, great. How do you answer this one? You guys are going to freak out when you see this. So here is the famous Breslin letter. Here are 4 aliases of the Son of Sam: the Duke of Death, the wicked King Wicker, the 22 disciples of hell, and John Wheaties. Okay, John Wheaties Carr, rapist and suffocator of young girls. Well, something happened when we had the cameras off, Eric. We were done with our interviews with the Nettos. We were leaving the house. The camera was off. We were all saying our pleasantries and goodbyes. And all of a sudden, Sylvia out of the blue says, at 22 Wicker Street, there was a German Shepherd by the name of Duke. And we were like, what? Duke? Was that German? So what I did was I turned the camera back on and I had them reenact the scene. So there was a dog next door. What was the name of this dog? And I'm very transparent and open about this. I had to turn the camera back on, okay? So
Duke.
And what kind of dog was Duke?
German Shepherd.
So there was another German Shepherd named
You hear Sylvia
Duke
say yes.
on Wicker Street, living here during that time period, right? 75 to 77?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So there's Duke right there. And how did we get a picture of Duke? Well, instead of reading books and looking up things on the internet, we found the owner of 22 Wicker Street, the former owner of 22 Wicker Street. We met with her in her office. She's still in Yonkers. She still has her marbles. She was a very pleasant and beautiful woman, actually. And she sat down with us for an hour, me and Neo, and we grilled her. We said, did you have a German Shepherd named Duke? We asked her a million questions. She not only said yes, she had his damn picture in her phone still. So here's the famous Duke. Now, that's only one half of the thing, because we cannot forget King. So Rocket was the name of the Netto German Shepherd that was shot by David Berkowitz on December 24th, 1976. They replaced Rocket.
They replaced Rocket with another German Shepherd. This German Shepherd name was King. We have Sylvia's going to probably come on my show this Monday, so you can hear it in her own voice. We didn't get it on tape. She told us this after these things were coming to her after, like we didn't elicit this or try to get it out of her. She was just like, yeah, we had a dog named King. And then we asked what kind of personality the dog had. And she said the dog was horrible. The dog was evil. It attacked her and bit her, and they had to get rid of it. So let me go back to the Breslin letter, because here we see the Duke of Death, the wicked King Wicker. Okay, sorry. The wicked King Wicker, right? So in the Breslin letter, the famous Son of Sam letter, they're referencing Duke King of Wicker Street, 2 German Shepherds of Wicker Street. King was a wicked dog. Here they're talking about the 22 disciples of hell, which
I want to push on that too. The 22 disciples of hell.
Yes, sir.
I still say sounds like the address. The disciples of hell at 22.
It could be, and he was talking about
versus the number or quantity of them.
It's a very good observation, Eric, and there could be something to that. But as we're going to learn, there are actually 22 demons of hell. We're going to learn that Person was the king of them. We're having a whole show this Monday about the symbology of this with my symbology expert, Craig Fitzgerald. We're having a whole discussion of just this one sentence itself. And then, of course, John Wheaties, the rapist, the suffocator of young girls. So Maury, interestingly enough, let me get so there was a dog. Let me get to here. So Maury, interestingly enough, tried to interpret the Breslin letter himself. He talked about how Michael Carr, the brother of John, had credit cards in the name of Baron Decharnowski and Baron Decharnowski, Russian nobleman. So he made the leap. He said, when I saw the Baron credit listings, I also noticed the word Char was written in 2 of the last names. I was reasonably certain that another alias was deciphered, the Duke of Death. So he had Michael Decharnowski Carr as the Duke of Death through this weird specious thing with credit cards, whereas we have a dog, actually a German Shepherd named Duke on Wicker Street. He goes, the suspected remaining alias, the wicked King Wicker, belonged to a certain other party. Now, Eric, we have identified this certain other party that Maury claimed was a guy named Wicked King Wicker. The guy's name is Alfonso Carroza. He lived at 22 Wicker Street. We spoke to the owner of 22 Wicker Street. She said that he was the nicest guy imaginable, never was involved in anything. We spoke to the guy's nephew. He was like, what? Maury brought him into this? What the hell? This guy was like the greatest guy. Never heard of any of this stuff before. They were shocked to hear this guy. So we think that the wicked King Wicker simply meant the dog, the German Shepherd that replaced Rocket. And then, of course, John Wheaties was John Carr. And we believe that the 22 disciples of hell were the demons. So here are the takeaways, and we're almost finished. So the big takeaways are, there's 4 of them. We never knew that the attack started before Berkowitz moved to Yonkers. This puts a big spin on things. Knowing that the attacks actually started before Berkowitz moved to Yonkers changes things. It means that Berkowitz either joined an existing criminal conspiracy. Eric said that maybe he could have been involved in it from afar, and that's always possible. Okay. But the Son of Sam crimes started on Wicker Street to the Netto family. They did not start in Untermeyer Park, and they did not need the process to influence it. Okay. So that's the first big takeaway. The attacks ramped up when Berkowitz came to town. Okay. That's the second takeaway. There's 2 distinct periods. It's very important. We never knew the wording of the Netto letters. If we had known that the words queen and princess were in the word queen was in the Netto letter, we would have tied the letters to the Son of Sam letters years ago, and the story would be very different now in the popular mind. And then finally, the big takeaway. We never knew the dogs' names. Maury never thought to ask these dogs' names, or if he did ask, he never reported on it. But I have a feeling that if we in the Son of Sam community had known that on Wicker Street there were 2 real existing German Shepherds, one named Duke and one named King,
I think that we would have thought that this is more than a mere coincidence, that we would have really
What,
made.
you mean the guy who had talking dogs as part of his confession?
Yeah,
It could be related. Yeah, well, maybe.
right. I mean, dogs are all over this case, right? From the killings of the German shepherds to the rocket to the Wicked King to the talking dog. If we had known as Son of Sam heads that Duke and King were real on Wicker Street, I think that would have changed the game. So my thesis in a nutshell is that Son of Sam started on Wicker Street. It was started by John Carr in 1974. David Berkowitz somehow joined the mix when he moved to town in April of 76. The attacks ramped up considerably. That led to their desire to go out and start shooting everybody in town. And so in this new theory on Son of Sam, no Untermeyer Park necessary, no huge cult called the Process necessary, no outside influences necessary, and certainly no Son of Sam cult necessary. So we believe that this story, if properly understood, can really change the game, Eric. And I want to say thank you so much, my friend, for allowing me the forum to tell your audience.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. And I hope you are going to come back next time you have more material. Meanwhile,
Absolutely.
people can find you. Well, they can find you through YouTube, Manny Grossman, and I'm sure you have links to all your other resources,
I
Subscribe
do.
Star and all that.
Right. I have a paid Subscribe Star, $5 memberships a month where you can get all the member exclusives. We do a show every week for free on YouTube, but all of the walk and talks and the really explosive materials all on Subscribe Star. And you can just look my name up and there you go.
All right. Well, Manny, thank you so much. And
You're
folks,
very
if you
welcome,
like
Eric.
this, you never know, he may turn up again, so you probably should subscribe.